Funny how that gets in the way of things. You're too young of a guy for that. Welcome, welcome to the August edition of the Amherst Planning Board. We appreciate you all being here this evening. I'll start out a couple of things. We know that the acoustics in this building, in this room, are tough. So if you can't hear, just, raise your hand or something. We'll try to work on that. When you do come up to the podium, within a reasonable distance, try to bring it towards you. Sometimes you get too close to it, you get some vibration. Sometimes if you don't get close enough to it, we can't hear you. They're working on those things. Improvements are in the future. Let me go through some housekeeping things here first, just to give you a little bit of background for those of you that have not been here before. From the planning board's perspective, the members are volunteers and they're appointed by the town board. The town board, of course, are elected officials. The planning board makes final decisions on site plans and subdivisions, okay, and we are advisory only on rezonings, and we make recommendations to the town board on those things. All right, the town board, of course, receives our recommendations and then makes the final decision on rezonings. The procedure for this evening, all right, and this is important. The petitioner will present to the board on agenda items. The board will ask the petitioner questions. Let's do this in order. A presentation by the petitioner is 15 minutes. Comments by a neighborhood resident spokesperson. In other words, if someone's here on a particular issue and they want to be the first one to speak and they're there representing their group, they get 15 minutes. Now, if, let's say, Jane is the person representing her group, when someone jumps in front of her, suddenly, well, let your conscience be your guide there, Jane, okay? If not, then that's whomever comes up first, and that's the way it is, because we have no way of knowing that, all right? But those are the rules to it. Any individual speakers thereafter get 3 minutes, and our person does time that for you. It's just so that we keep things moving along. Like tonight, we have a long agenda, and we have a lot of things that are near and dear to everybody here. So we want to be fair to everyone. We're here to listen to what your needs are, but by the same token, I will share this with you. We appreciate brevity and not redundancy. So again, if someone's representing their group and they talk about traffic and they mention some other things and someone else mentions it, we got it, all right? Stay to the points of things that you think haven't been addressed that you think we need to know about that are concerns of yours. All right, as far as the procedure, the petitioner will present on the board, to the board on the agenda item. The board, we will ask questions and converse with the petitioner. I will then ask if anyone from the public has comments or questions. So what I'll ask is, as we address each of these items on the agenda, if there's a particular item that you want to get up and speak about, pay attention to that, and as we're asking for that, start to line up. Because if I look over and see there's no one lined up, I'm assuming then all of those that wanted to speak have spoken, all right? And we move on. And I don't want you to miss the opportunity. But obviously, if someone sits in that corner and waits until someone speaks and walks away and then walks up here, we're taking valuable time away from this. And by the way, what we do in a lot of these things, after we go through the agenda, Then we make some decisions on it. Some people like to wait around for that. Could be a very long evening, so we want to operate as most efficiently as possible. All right. The planning board will then ask the petitioner to address any questions and comments to the public. And then there's a laser pointer up there, if you will, to the podium that you can use certainly where your presentations. Again, like I say, try to talk into this so we can hear you. If for some reason you can't hear us, let us know. We ask everybody here, if you've got a cell phone, please put it on mute, because we don't want to, again, it's a distraction as we're trying to put on this presentation. That being said, in the event, one last thing, if we have to evacuate this room this evening, all right, there's 2 exits, all right? Certainly go out that way or out here and go through there. Do not come this way, all right? This is not an exit behind us. And I'll make one other comment, just because I think I have to. Apparently in a local newspaper a few weeks ago, there was a comment made that we had recommended a particular project. That was an incorrect statement. I believe they retracted it, probably on page 27 somewhere. That was not the truth. We have not recommended anything at this point for Costco. So that was an incorrect statement, just so everyone knows that. All right. That being said, we will go to item number 1. The first one here is a site plan review, proposed Tier 3 solar energy system, property located at 800 and 850 New Road. The petitioner, please.
Thank you for having us tonight. My name is Lee McIntyre, and I'm a project developer with SolSource Power. We've met before on a rezoning on this property. So I'm going to go through a few points about the company and about the project, and I will shortly be joined by Mark Kenward, who you've also met, who's running just a little bit behind. So SolSource is a New York-based company. We're female and veteran-owned, and we're based out of Troy, New York. We develop solar farms all across New York, and we develop community solar farms. So I got my start in solar in 2014. I've lived in New York most of my life, and I work on projects all across the state. So I mentioned community solar. One of the benefits that this project brings is that it's part of the community solar program in New York. What that means is that residents are able to take advantage of the electricity produced by the solar farm and get a discount on their electric bill through National Grid. It's a really great program that New York started a few years ago, and it helps the little guy rather than large off-takers like manufacturing facilities or the Amazons that are capturing a lot of this energy. So there's a few other benefits to solar. I think we went over these a little briefly, but just sort of as a reminder, there's the money that they bring in with pilots, so payments in lieu of taxes, and also taxes to the taxing jurisdictions, the county, the town, and the school district. There's also upgrades that are brought to the grid. So as many of us know, some of us face a lot of power outages, and that's because we have a really, really dated grid and dated infrastructure across New York. It's projected that there will be billions that will need to be put into that infrastructure to bring it up and improve it over the next 50 years. So we will be upgrading the systems on New Road and at the substation nearby at the cost of us, not the cost of the ratepayers. There's also the environmental benefits to this solar farm. So in the first year of production alone, the New Road solar farm will produce enough energy to power 1,347 homes over the course of the year. So by shifting the source of energy production to this clean source, over the first 25 years of this array, 170,000 tons of carbon emissions will be avoided. So I know we don't all work in that sort of system, so I wanted to put this in a little bit of perspective for you. That is equal to 172 million pounds of coal burned, 356,000 barrels of oil consumed, and because it's the summer, I wanted to share this statistic. It's equivalent to the emissions from 7 million propane cylinders used from home barbecues. It's also equal to the carbon sequestered by 183,000 acres of US forests in 1 year. So it's not just about power generation, it's also about crafting a sustainable future for the community, and that's what we hope to do here. Our mission at SolSource is to develop these community solar farms in a sustainable way that takes the input of all of the stakeholders. So we'll go through just the particulars of the solar farm. This will be located on the west side of New Road across two parcels that will be merged. So 850 and 800 New Road will be merged to accommodate about 30 acres of solar. We can go to the next slide. There's no existing development on this site. It is vacant land. We provided the planning department with a tree survey on site, which showed that much of the trees that are on the site are dead or dying. They pose a risk to the solar in terms of potentially falling on the solar panels or injuring people during the construction of the solar array. So there are areas of the property that we do plan to remove trees on. So the project array is on just under 30 acres of solar. This is not productive farmland. We do plan to fence the entire array in so that just for safety procedures, and we also plan to, and I don't know if this is on this slide, lean into the agrivoltaic development of this project. What I mean when I refer to that is using the property for farming the sun, and also leaning into the agricultural importance of the property. So we plan to use sheep grazing to take care of the vegetation on site throughout the year. We are working with local sheep farmers, and there's actually an initiative across New York State to work with sheep farmers for this. There currently aren't enough sheep in New York to meet the demand of solar arrays, so they're currently working on breeding enough to meet that demand, but that is our intention to accommodate the co-location of agriculture on this property. And you can see there is a wetland in the middle of the site. The wetland is under the jurisdiction of the U.S. Army Corps. We plan to build around the wetland for the solar array to limit impacts on that wetland. This is a depiction of the property. At the front of the property, there will be landscaping to block the view to the solar array. We worked with a local landscape architect on that, and we've submitted comments and worked with the planning department pretty extensively on those landscaping plans to really limit the visual impact to the solar array on New Road. Here's a depiction of the solar array with no landscaping on it. And with the landscape buffer, that is a depiction of the 10-year growth of that landscaping buffer. We worked with a local company who does these visuals quite often. So this is a really good depiction of what that will look like. We do plan to cut some growth on the property, but we plan to replace it with healthy growth. I think what you'll see in the tree study that was submitted is that there's a lot of unhealthy growth on the property that doesn't stand to last the test of time. A lot of the trees are expected to fall because they are not living. They also have a really low root system, and we do plan to replace those with the landscaping. So I'd like to welcome any questions from the planning board that I can answer.
There's someone who brought up that they had a concern because they will be living close to the solar farm.
Mm-hmm.
Concerned about the kind of exposure that they had, and their families and so forth.
Right. Absolutely. So, and that's a common question we get. So the infrastructure that we're using for this solar farm is the same electrical infrastructure that's used along the road currently. It's a 13 kilovolt line. That's the same service that you get to any of the businesses across Amherst. There is some studies out there and potentially some evidence for higher voltage lines causing health effects. I don't know if those have been validated, but these are low voltage lines and not similar to that. So in terms of the electricity, no health effects that are known from this level of solar. I know we also get questions about any chemicals used on the property or that are in the solar panels. Everything in the solar panel itself and on the system is solid, so there's no liquid that could go into the stormwater. There's also, if any panel breaks, it's just silicone, glass, and metal, so that can easily be cleaned up. We don't use any chemicals on the property. Sometimes we hear, what do you do to de-ice the array? We let the sun do it. If you've ever seen solar panels on a home, the snow and ice melts off much quicker than it would on a typical roof. So we let the environment take care of that. There's no chemicals involved in this, and no known health effects of the solar array. Yeah.
I guess with any solar farm, it always seems to be the destruction of the trees on the property, obviously when they're raised,
Mhm.
is slightly concerning. So is there going to be a concerted effort by the applicant to make sure this buffering, this vegetation buffering, is going to include healthy trees and not just bushes?
Yes, so we are required by the town of Amherst to provide healthy vegetation and to maintain that, to limit the visual impact of the array. So we have to maintain that to abide by the stipulations in the special use permit. So we worked with a landscape architect on this. We'll work with landscapers to do that and to provide coverage. It's really healthy vegetation that we'll be putting in, and we'll also be putting in, which I didn't mention before, but seeding the property with pollinators that attract, especially the monarch butterfly, which is a threatened species, and other pollinators too. Yeah. Correct. So there are trees proposed at the front of the property. We also worked with the planning board to limit the amount of tree cutting as much as possible so that the existing growth also provides a buffer, especially.
You're still seeing a lot of trees in the wetland areas, correct?
So there isn't actually a lot of tree removal with the project. If you go to the site, you'll see that there's really a sparse amount of trees scattered across the site. And especially if you go in the summer, you can see that there's no growth on these trees. There's no foliage. So when I went there in the winter, Buffalo in the winter, it's great. It's a little bleak nature-wise, but it looks somewhat similar in the summer too. So the trees that we're removing, I think there's sometimes this concern that when you remove a tree, one tree weighs about, or is valued about as much as another tree, and that really isn't true here. In this case, the trees that we are removing are dead or dying, and that's captured in the tree survey. We also responded with some comments about, some of the trees that are moved or removed. If they were left in existence, they would pose a safety risk to construction crews. They'd pose a risk to the solar because they could fall onto the array, onto the fence line. And they also provide a lot of shading to the array. So to cut some of the trees in the wetland area, which is what we propose, but leave the stumps, is a non-disturbance. Army Corps does not regulate that cutting because it is a non-disturbance. So in those wetland areas, we propose the cutting but leaving the stumps, which is a pretty common practice when you're working around those. That was a long answer.
I have a couple of technical questions. You mentioned that the panels are very low voltage.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have also on site other equipment like inverters and voltage step-up transformers?
Yes. So we have 2 inverter pads on site that are on the plan set. Those inverters convert the electricity from DC to AC for the grid, and they're rated at 5 megawatts AC. We have equipment that will step up that electricity to meet the 13 kilovolts in the lines. So that all of that is detailed on the site plans. Yes, that is on site.
So do you know what the step-up voltage will be?
It would step up to 13 kilovolts. Do you have anything to add to that, or?
You want to mention your name, please, who you represent, your address.
Mark Kenward with Erdman Anthony Consulting Engineers. The equipment pads are here and here. They gather in the two sides, if you will, of the array. This is the equipment pad for the interconnection in here. The connection is out here at the road or at the line there. So as she said,
You want to speak in the mic, please, so they can hear you in the back?
as she said, the equipment pads here collect DC power, and they feed it to AC. It's converted to AC out here at the interconnection equipment pads out at the front of the corner of the site here.
Did that fully answer your question, or did you have
What did you say, 13.8 kV or?
13.2 kV?
kV.
Yep.
So that is still considerably less than a high voltage transmission line.
Yes, so the high voltage transmission lines range from 65 to all the way up to 350 or so kV. Yep. So it's much lower. That electricity and those transmission lines are stepped down throughout the grid to the 13 kV, which is the service that comes to the buildings here, the businesses and the homes.
Okay, thanks for that. Oh, one more question. You mentioned there are metals in the panel. Is cadmium one of them?
Do you know the answer to that?
I think what she meant by metals, it's the metal framework for the panels themselves. They're built in a metal framework. I'm not aware of any cadmium in the solar panels themselves, but that's not to say there could be trace amounts, but I'm a civil engineer, I'm not an electrical engineer, so I'm not familiar.
Because there are some type of panels have cadmium, and there is a danger of that escaping in events like fires, etc.
I know in previous iterations of this technology, there were components to it that may have been dangerous, and that was at least 2 decades ago. I know at this point the technology has changed, and the formula for the silicone glass has changed, and there isn't anything that would pose a health risk, but I would certainly look it up and can get back to you on the cadmium just to ensure that that isn't in the panels.
Bob, how do we wait for that? What do you think we need to do? Should we wait? They're going to look into it and see if there's any cadmium.
Well, as we come to the point of making a decision on it, we can talk about those things.
Put a condition, perhaps? Or?
Yes. We can make that. Sure. You're good?
Thank you. Good, yeah.
All right. Does anybody wish to come and speak to this? All right. Line up, please.
I live directly across the street from this
Okay,
proposal.
Want to give us your name, please, and address?
It's Sally Blazinski from 905 New Road. I live directly across the street. My family and I have been there for over 30 years. Nothing against new energy or ways to save the world, but I would like to know exactly how many feet this is from my property. My house is fairly close to the road. I've done considerable research since I received the notice of this meeting, which was my first, I didn't know about this until last week. I would like to know how many feet it is because in my research, it recommends considerable meters to reside away from these for health hazards. Some of them are not too serious, but they're quality control issues. And some of the other issues could be very serious. I'm downwind quite a lot of the times the wind comes from across that field directly through our house. I haven't heard anything about if this were approved by the board, what accommodations would be made for the residents directly across the street within a couple hundred feet. Are they interested in buying our properties and relocating us and covering those expenses that we would incur? I've also researched our property values. If you're directly across the street, they would drastically reduce. I don't think anybody in this room would voluntarily purchase a house that's directly across the street from any kind of power factory. And that's what this is in a sense. It's an open power factory. I am not comfortable with it being built across the street. So if you did approve it, I would hope that you would insist that they would take care of the residents directly across the street. I wouldn't want to be part of Amherst to not care about the residents, long-term residents, and their health concerns. It's very serious. It's very upsetting when we got this in the mail and hadn't heard from the company that's doing this. No notice whatsoever, except there's a board meeting about it. So I hope you take my concerns into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Cornwell, 780 New Road. Spoke to you guys the first time that you had a meeting for this. I live right next door. They're at least buffered by the street. I'm not buffered by anything, and you guys have moved the construction from the center up there down to next to the gas company, which I live right adjacent to. So my concerns are, I got a bunch. Glare, it sounds like somebody else must have brought it up. I walked in late, I'm sorry about that. There's a lot of great entertainment outside tonight, which means no parking. Anybody know the height in Amherst for a two-car garage or any garage? Maximum height when you go for a building permit?
We'll respond to everything. Just
Okay, it's 20 feet, so I'll let you know. These are 18-foot panels, presumably set up on something because they're supposed to rotate with the sun. So anybody across the street, because it looks like the array faces New Road, is going to be looking at a bunch of garages, not just garages, but glare coming off the glass of a size of a garage for quite a distance. I don't even know what the distance is between my house and the next house down that they want to build on. Are they doing anything to improve the drainage out there while they're doing the work, or are they just keeping it hopefully the same as it is with the ditches out front that tend to overflow sometimes? Property values, the last lady spoke about that. I told you about the study from New Hampshire where the property values do go down if you're within 500 feet of one of these things. Is Amherst doing anything for our assessments and our taxes to address all those houses adjacent to this, I liked what she called it, an energy factory? The fire in Lyme, New York, I think you guys must have addressed that because I heard people asking questions that sounded similar to that. And the setback was originally 50 feet from the street, which is narrower than the street itself is. Can it be set back 200 feet, 250 feet so that you can have some vegetation so that when you're looking out your living room window, you're not looking at a bunch of solar panels that weren't there when you moved in over a decade ago? Those are just some of the questions. She was addressing trees that they're going to be cutting down. There's a lot of ash, which makes sense. Take those out, but it takes trees a long time to grow to block a 20-foot thing. That's all. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Seeing none, please would you like to respond to the questions.
So thank you for your questions. Jim, I know we had spoken before. So we did increase the setbacks and expanded the amount of vegetation that we'll be providing in our landscaping plan. It is very costly to do so, but we did work with the town to increase the landscaping buffer for the project to limit visibility to the array. We did provide a glare study to the planning department, which shows that there is limited glare, and we've agreed to work with the town if that changes at all. The height is expected to likely be around 15 to 16 feet in actuality. We did submit, I know the town has a limit of 20 feet, but we expect the array at the highest point to be right around 16 feet. 16, yeah. I know we, oh,
The visual simulations, I believe they modeled them at the maximum height of 20, and you, as you shown there, after the 10-year growth, it's well screened from this southwest corner, which is near this gentleman's house. Projected 10-year growth. And the other thing we should clarify is the panels are trackers, so they start out facing east in the morning, and by nightfall, they're facing west. But during the day, their height reduces because they rotate from about a 60-degree angle facing east to a 60-degree angle facing west.
there. So a glare study is pretty common in our submittals. We do it pretty often. And we did agree with the town that if there is any changes to the glare, we will work with them in the future on it. In terms of cadmium, there are trace amounts. It is encapsulated, and even if broken, would not leach into anything. Also, again, there are no known or published health hazards from solar farms. And in terms of drainage, we have a SWIP that was submitted and revised a few times with the planning department. We have New York State's DEC rules that we have to abide by, which are really strict and really do protect New Yorkers to an expand.
They're essentially, the SWIP shows there's no change in the runoff characteristics, and there is no increase in runoff from the site. The ditches in front are going to be maintained as they are. We are 100 feet setback to the fence line. The front fence line is 100 foot from the road. And that, if you could scroll ahead again, this is vegetation that is supposed to remain undisturbed. These are going to actually be berms, topsoil storage berms that plantings are placed upon here to help further screen it. And those visual simulations that were done represent this condition here with the berms and the shrubs and trees that are proposed. Thank you.
And in terms of drainage, also, there are very frequent inspections done during construction and post-construction of the project site to ensure that we are adhering to the SWIP requirements.
Thank you. Hearing's closed. Next item. All right, for the public, what we're going to do is the petitioner is going to talk about items 2, 3, 4, and 5. When we make decisions, we're going to break that down so each one will be discussed and decided upon independently. Take it away. No, but we're not voting right now. We will as we yeah.
Good evening. James Baglioli for Benderson Development, 570 Delaware Avenue, Buffalo, New York. I will not use my full hour of allocated time, I guarantee it. Can you move to my slides, Tom?
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. A brief history here, because we've seen this project a number of times at the planning board. In June 2022, and I will walk through the project in a minute, the town board rezoned a part of this site to GI and R&D. I'll walk through that in a minute. In January of 2023, they rezoned the remainder of the shopping center. In February of 2023, we filed the site plan application. In June of 2023, we made a presentation to this board so you're aware of where we're going with it. We did submit a noise study and traffic study as part of this application. We have addressed all the comments we received as of yesterday in writing back to the planning department. We received one comment letter today from the town engineering department with 2 minor comments, which we will address as a condition of approval. So now moving ahead with the project. This is the existing property and the development. The property is in yellow. It is 61.82 acres. It maintains 1,900 feet of frontage on North Bailey and 793 feet of frontage broken up on Meyer. The neighboring uses are the I-290 and 990, the interchanges over here where the blue is. You have Boulevard Consumer Square, which is one of the largest shopping centers in Western New York, to the west. You have what we call Amherst Development Park, which is a R&D zone piece of property with a mix of warehouses and offices over here. And then you have single-family residential remaining along Meyer. The existing development in the yellow is 480,000 square feet. That's 17 buildings. We are demolishing 14 of those buildings. We are effectively demolishing 350,000 square feet. So we are taking out of the 480, 350 off the site. What's remaining on the site is the 91,000 square foot Key Bank office building, which was recently redeveloped with a parking lot, and 2 small 20,000 square foot flex space warehouse buildings that have been on the site for a long period of time. Next slide, please. On the current zoning, as I talked about, you can see the part of the property zone shopping center over here. And you can see the part of the property zone research and development in this area. And one of the 20,000 square foot buildings is zoned general industrial. That's for a soap mixing facility for Delta Sonic. Next slide, please. We are breaking the site into 4 lots. They're color-coded and called out here. Parcel 1 will be the Dick's House of Sports lot. Parcel 2 will be the Costco lot with their fueling facility. Parcel 3 will be the existing Key Bank building, its parking lot, and ancillary land, which are going to add to that lot. And then parcel 4 is the Delta Sonic Warehouse project. Next slide, please. This is a colored up plan of our project. I'm going to walk through it. As I noted, we're going to be demolishing 14 of the 17 buildings. The only 3 buildings to remain are the Key Bank and the 2 small warehouse buildings in gray. Those are about 130,000 square feet. In all, after we demolish and add, the site is only a positive 66,000 square feet. So if you take what we took off and what we add, we've only increased this site by 66,000 square feet of commercial development. So it's actually a much smaller of an increase than you would think by this plan. Walking through the site, we're adding 120,000 square foot Dick's House of Sports up to the north. This is the Ridgely extension. You can see the Dick's House of Sports. It has an 18,516 square foot outdoor sports facility area. That's fenced in and enclosed. There are 349 parking stalls out in front, and it'll be an 8.2 acre parcel. We're adding 167,000 square foot Costco with a gas station out in front. The gas station will have 16 pumps and 32 fueling stations. It has one-way circulation and no access onto Bailey. So if you notice, it's green all the way across Bailey. You'll access either through the 2 signalized driveways, come in the back, you come in and you circle through and come right back out. All the access is into the internal road system, so it creates no traffic on North Bailey. The Costco will have 774 parking spots in 3 main lots, one here, one south of the gas station, and one up in this area. It is on a 17.16 acre parcel. We have the 92,000 square foot Key Bank building that's to remain, and the 534 parking spaces that are built for that facility here and here. We are proposing to add 94 land banked parking spaces. Those are parking spaces that will not be built now, but if we ever get more employees, we could add those there later. And they are identified right here. You can barely see them in the green, the area we're going to grass. That is a land bank 94 space parking field. We have a 109,500 square foot new warehouse building located here for Delta Sonic. That includes a 1,500 square foot addition to the 20,000 square foot building up here, which will be the soap mixing facility. The Delta Sonic provides 163 parking spaces in this area. We have some down here and some around the building. We are land banking 155 parking spaces from the planning board who last saw this project. Those include this area green here, this area green here, and the entire parking field over here will remain grass. We are not going to put those in at this point, and if we don't need them, we will never put them in. We also are proposing, and I'll walk through it in a little bit, an 82 to 85-foot buffer between the warehouse facility, the parking, and the single-family residences, and that was negotiated as part of the rezone. Next slide, please. As I noted, there was a traffic study done for this. It has gone to the Traffic Safety Commission 2 or 3 times, and we have, and it has been reviewed. And I will walk through the traffic improvements to address the safety and the additional square footage here. We're adding a right-in, right-out on the North Bailey in front of the Dix, so that when you come in, you can leave right in and right out to aid people in getting in and out of that site. We're adding a new, we'll call traffic signal 1, new traffic signal. This is the Best Buy Boulevard into the main access way into Costco. That traffic signal aligns with the lot across the street. Between the two plazas, there will be 3 lanes in this direction, a shared left through lane, which means you can go left or straight, and a dedicated right turn lane. On North Bailey, going in this direction, there will also be 3 lanes, dedicated left turn lanes and a shared right lane and a through lane. On the new traffic signal 2, we are relocating Romney Road. So Romney Road currently tees into the bank. Romney Road will be bent so that it creates a 4-way intersection. So when you come off the boulevard, you can go right into the site, right into Romney Road. You don't have to meander your way on the North Bailey. As part of that realignment, we're proposing 4 lanes between the shopping center and the plaza, a dedicated left, a dedicated through, and dedicated right lane in both directions. And then we're adding 3 lanes, including a dedicated left lane and a shared right turn lane, again, on Bailey. We're creating a new boulevard through the site. So if you can see the 2 signals here, we are creating a boulevard that goes through the entire site. That ends at Meyer and connects right across to Beaumont. So if you were using the shopping center, you go out to Maple, you would not have to go out onto the boulevard. You can go right down the boulevard, this new created boulevard, and out to Beaumont, right to Maple. So there are various ways for the traffic to disperse on this site, and there's a lot of roadway improvements being made. We also are, I read in the paper, some comment about how we did not have enough parking. The project is completely code compliant as far as parking goes. We don't need any variances. And we did receive a special use permit on Tuesday for the gas facility from the zoning board. Next slide, please. Just walking through the buffer, there's only one part of the site that abuts residences. This is Meyer Road, and these are the residences on Meyer Road. This was negotiated as part of the rezoning. If you recall, I presented it to this board at the time, and it has not changed. We are going to provide a buffer between the residential neighbors and the proposed parking lot between 82 and 80 feet. That is the dark green. In that dark green, we're going to install a 4-foot high berm. On top of that berm, we're going to put a 6-foot high solid wood fence on the top of the berm, so you'll have a 10-foot buffer. The berm is going to be located 50 feet off the property line. That's where it starts. So in that intervening 50 feet, we're leaving all the existing vegetation. So we will not be touching any of the existing vegetation. We've also agreed to fill in any spaces that are currently there in that vegetation once we get out on site and we're doing the work. So if there's any gaps, we'll plant there also, on top of adding the berm, the fence. We're installing dense landscaping on the berm. There's a full landscape plan the board has. It is very dense, utilizing both evergreen and deciduous trees. As I noted, we're leaving intact all the existing vegetation on the residential side in the first 50 feet and filling in the gaps. We also have reduced the parking from the last time this board has seen it, and that was a comment when we were here for the rezoning, if we could look at reducing the parking. We did that by land banking the parking here in the light green, land banking the parking here, and land banking all the spaces here. So all that area will be green. It was previously proposed to be asphalt. You may have a question why this is not land banked and the parking is not put up here. Delta Sonic's front door is over here away from the neighbors. So we were keeping the parking close to the neighbors so you don't have people walking close to the main entrance, so you don't have people walking all the way down along the building. It is a rather long building. Next slide, please. I know the board has seen the building elevations. This is the front of Costco. This is the side of Delta Sonic. We have no windows facing any of the neighbors with the entrance in this area. And this is the Dick's, which is a mix of brick and EFS. The Costco and Dick's are very consistent with the shopping center boulevard across the way. I know this board is familiar with it, as well as the warehouse is attractive, and there's no openings facing the neighbors. So it actually, we did do a noise study. There are no impacts related to noise as a result of this development. We are willing to take a condition, which you have talked to the planning department about, to install the berm, the fence, and the landscaping prior to receiving a building permit for the warehouse. So we do need to do the initial work because the dirt for that berm is coming from the warehouse site. So as we do that site, the dirt's going to be put in the berm. But prior to receiving a building permit, we agreed to have the fence, the landscaping, and the berm built and up. So it'll mitigate any impacts to the neighbors during construction. That is basically the site. I know we've seen this project a lot. I'm happy to answer any questions the board has.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Brittany, any questions?
Just to make sure, the applicant is encouraging of sidewalks to facilitate public transportation?
We have worked with the planning department. Everything has pedestrian connection. We have installed sidewalks. We've even agreed to install potential sidewalks as future development comes online. So I know we worked with the planning department. All the pedestrian connections are there. All the crosswalks are there. It's throughout the entire site. And we are currently working with NFTA to rework the buses, not only on this site, but through the entire shopping centers next door. That's TJ Maxx and the Boulevard, so that we have a consistent bus route through all the sites. Currently, they stop at one random location on the Boulevard, and that's the big shopping center. So we've been working with them. We have a meeting with them to work out some more bus stops.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions? Barb?
Just a clarification, towards the end of your presentation, you described the sequence of the berm, the fence, and the construction. Went a little too fast for me. Could you go over that again, please?
Yes. So we have agreed, can you go back one slide, please, Tom? We have agreed, as a condition of approval, that we will not, prior to obtaining a building permit for this building, we will install the berm, the fence, and all the landscaping that's in the buffer area. We need to do that. We need to clear this site because the soil for that berm is actually coming from lowering that site a little bit. So that's why the condition is prior to receiving a building permit. So prior to the building actually going up, all the landscaping will be in, all the buffering will be in, mitigating the impact to the neighbors.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Carrie, anything? Anybody in the public wish to speak on this? If so, please line up.
Good evening. Thank you for having me and allowing me to speak. And this is actually to Benderson Development. My name is Lisa Thagard, and I am a candidate for the North District. And I'm not just calling it North District in the city of Buffalo, it's historical Black Rock. And I did reach out to Benderson Development, and one of the reasons why I wanted to come here is specifically because he's the go-to man for the Costco proposal that's being built here in Amherst. And my question for the Benderson Development, since I did reach out to him, he never returned a call. So this is my opportunity to address my proposal. As a councilwoman, and as far as Mr. Golombek, my goal is to bring a supermarket, one that would accommodate the city of Buffalo, not only just my district, but the surrounding area. So I would like to know, once this project is completed, would you consider bringing a Costco to the city of Buffalo? Because the residents have stated they would like to see a Costco. We do have many universities in the surrounding areas in Buffalo that would actually be shopping at the Costco. So that's what I would like to address. You're welcome.
Is there anybody else?
We don't pick where the tenants go. The tenants ask us when we have available space. So Costco has picked Amherst to locate in. They've been looking for a site in Amherst. There was only one other town they were looking at. It's not the city of Buffalo. We do own property in Buffalo, and we'll certainly work with the city of Buffalo if we have property that can accommodate a grocery store. But we don't, as this board is well aware, because you've seen me come here before, we don't pick the place the tenants go. The tenants pick where they want to go. We try and have a project that accommodates them. That's how it works.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there no other questions? Yes, it is. Item number 6. This is a site plan review, proposed multi-family development, property located at 40 Dodge Road. Mr. Hopkins.
Yes, good evening, Chairman Gilmore and members of the Planning Board. Sean Hopkins of the law firm of Hopkins, Storage and McCarthy on behalf of the applicant, the Green Organization. Also with me is Pat Sheedy, the project engineer from Carmina Wood Design, as well as Dave Sutton, the project architect from Sutton Architecture. The property that we're presenting this evening is located at 480 Dodge Road. Which screen am I supposed to point at? All right, thank you. 480 Dodge Road, just to acclimate everyone, directly south of the I-990. On the opposite side of the I-990 is the Muir Woods project. To the west is Audubon Parkway. To the east is Dodge Road. And you can see we're also opposite Robin Ridge Road. It is important to note that this site is properly zoned New Community District General Commercial, NCDGC, and that zoning has been in place for approximately 50 years now. And I'm not going anywhere. This is an aerial photograph. It is important to note that most previously this site was the location of Arbordale Nursery. I think we probably all know that very well. There are various older and outdated structures on this site, and that use has been in existence since, I believe, 1970. Prior to that, it had been utilized primarily for agricultural purposes. The site itself is slightly more than 5 acres in size, and there's various uses in the immediate vicinity. It is important to note and acknowledge that there are single-family homes located in near proximity, including those that are directly on the opposite side or the southern side of Dodge Road. What we're proposing, and this is based on some modifications we made since originally filing the site plan application way back in April, is a total of 116 apartments for lease, which will consist of 2 4-story apartment buildings located at the back portion of the site, directly adjacent to the I-990 right-of-way, and then 5 2-story townhome buildings consisting of 4 units each along the Dodge Road frontage. Total of 241 parking spaces. That does include 34 garage spaces and a whole assortment of related required improvements. It's a copy of the most recent site plan. The buildings that are here in purple are the 2 4-story buildings. We'll show you some color renderings. The stormwater management area, which will be located on the northwest portion of the site. And then as you can see, in light of the fact that we do have single-family homes located directly across the street on Dodge Road, we're proposing a series of 2-story, 4-unit townhome buildings. The renderings and layout of those reflect some input we received from the planning department. We also do have a clubhouse as well as a relatively small dog park area located here. We're going to concentrate on trying to provide a seamless transition between the uses across the site, the townhomes, and then getting higher density as we get to the back of the site adjacent to the I-990. These are the renderings that have been prepared by Dave Sutton of Sutton Architecture. These would be the 2-story, 4-unit townhomes located along Dodge Road. It is important to note the planning department asked us to make some changes and may have some additional comments as a condition, including walk-up, putting the porches, bringing in some different materials. We're actually quite proud of the look that we're now presenting in terms of these townhomes that will be located directly opposite the single-family homes. These are the 2 4-story multifamily buildings that will be located on the back portion of the site. The peak height is 45 feet. The reason that peak height is not as high as it typically would be for a 4-story building is because we're utilizing flat roofs. By way of comparison, properties that are located in the town's residential 3 zoning district would have a maximum height of 35 feet. You can also see the clubhouse elevation on the bottom right. I think we've already depicted where we are. I've already mentioned the fact, again, that we're properly zoned and have been in place for approximately 50 years. This is an update or a highlighted version of the site plan, and I want to touch on several things. When we originally filed this application, way back when in April of this year, what we're showing on the back portion of the site, which is highlighted in yellow here, is 2 4-story and 5-story buildings, meaning those weren't limited to 4-story buildings with a flat roof. Based on some input received during an informational meeting held with nearby residents in late May, as well as input we did receive from the town as part of the review process, we eliminated the 5th floor. So we're now down to 4 stories. And we also took what was previously this larger dog park area and infilled that with an additional 2-story, 4-unit townhome building. The reason we did that is, again, we think that's the best perspective if you live on the opposite side of Dodge Road, rather than having this giant gap where you can see through to the back. It is important to note the setback of those 4-story, which were previously 5-story buildings, from Dodge Road is 200 feet, so approximately 2/3 of a football field. We've done our best to push those as far north as possible. We are showing one full access curb cut and then a right-in, right-out curb cut based on input received as part of the review process. I would also note that the Erie County Department of Public Works has asked for, as well as the town, a possible pedestrian beacon crossing here. The town's asked for it. It requires Erie County approval. We're fine doing that so long as it is approved by the Erie County Department of Public Works. That is a county road. The copy of the updated site plan, as I mentioned, with the infilling of that additional 2-story, 4-unit building, modifying the originally proposed 5-story and 4-story buildings to 4-story only, changing the configuration of the location of both the clubhouse and the dog park area. The dog park area in particular has been made much, much smaller. Copy of the landscape plan. This has been reviewed by Jeff Sikowski, the town's landscape architect. In light of the fact it was most recently utilized as a nursery, we are, of course, proposing very extensive landscaping, including, believe it or not, 176 different trees, 14 types, 613 shrubs, as well as 24 ornamental grasses. So there will be ample green space and landscaping provided in connection with this project. Copy of the photometric plan. The most important aspect of this particular plan is we will be using dark sky compliant lighting, and we've demonstrated that there will be 0 lighting spillover onto the adjacent properties, both to the east and the west, and more importantly, the properties on the opposite side of Dodge Road to the south. These are copies of the elevation plans that were prepared by Sutton Architecture. Again, the updated elevation plans compared to the original application that was filed in April. These are the 4-story buildings, and as I indicated, the height to the peak is 45 feet, the height to the main facade, 43 feet. And they do show a diverse range of materials as well as vertical and horizontal relief, meaning we're not just proposing a rectangular box. Elevations for the clubhouse, mimicking the same materials. You can see that has a residential style roof. These are the elevations for the townhomes, the 2-story, 4-unit buildings located along Dodge Road. One thing that is interesting of these buildings is they really have 2 fronts. So typically, whether it's a patio home or a townhome in the town of Amherst or elsewhere, the garages face the street. I think this is one of the first projects, maybe the first project in the suburbs, where the garages will actually be in the back. So the garages will actually face the 990, and the view from the right-of-way would be what you would typically see at a more urban or city location. Oops, I'm sorry, why do I keep doing that? Will be this, meaning it'll literally be those front facades, the steps, it will have more of that brownstone appearance. It's the original color rendering, just by way of comparison. Those were the townhomes that we originally proposed, and as I indicated, the planning department really did push aggressively to improve those. Planning department working with Dave has done that. Whether there'll be some additional minor refinements, we're certainly open to that. And you can see that's the updated rendering for the townhomes. Perspective of the townhomes looking back to the 4-story buildings, again, with that being 200 feet back from the Dodge Road right-of-way. It's a perspective looking more to the northwest, and you can see that small dog park area. So in addition to the request for site plan approval, this does require an environmental determination pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Over the course of the past 4+ months, we've provided very extensive documentation that clearly demonstrates that this project will not result in any potentially significant adverse environmental impacts. It's hundreds and hundreds of pages of reports and studies. But to summarize, that does include a no impact determination letter issued by the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. There are no wetlands per the wetland delineation report prepared by Earth Dimensions dated May 4th, 2023. We have provided an updated traffic impact study prepared by Passero Associates in late July. That traffic impact study had very detailed findings but basically to summarize, it concluded that the project will not result in any potentially significant adverse traffic impacts. Now, that shouldn't be meant to suggest that the project will not have traffic impacts. Obviously, it will, but taking a look at the roadways in that vicinity, including both the intersections at John James Audubon Parkway and Dodge Road, as well as Dodge Road and Campbell, the analysis was that it does not have any adverse or significant adverse traffic impacts. That traffic impact study has been reviewed and approved by the town's Traffic Safety Board per a memorandum issued by Chris Schragle, the Traffic Safety Coordinator, dated August 10th. Additional environmental documentation includes a Phase 1 prepared by Labella, dated August 15th, 2022. The reason that document is very important is because this formerly was a nursery. There was a potential for there to be contamination. The Phase 1 confirms that no contamination has been encountered to date. The on-site stormwater management system will comply with the very stringent stormwater quality and quantity standards of both the DEC and the town of Amherst. If there's any questions about that, Pat can answer them. We've confirmed there is adequate downstream sanitary sewer capacity during wet weather conditions, which is a rainfall event of ½ inch or more. We've talked about the photometric plan. We provided a geotechnical report. And in conclusion, we think it's quite clear the only appropriate seeker determination with respect to this particular project would be the issuance of a negative declaration. So with all that being said, what we're asking you to do this evening is two things. Issue a negative declaration pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and then approve the site plan as modified very substantially, subject to appropriate conditions. If there's any questions about the history of this project, the substantial modifications made to date, or the requested approvals, either myself, Pat, or Dave would welcome the opportunity to address them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Brittany, I'll go to you first. Questions?
I appreciate the reduction of the four-story building, but where else, just considering neighborhood consistency, where else along Dodge is there a four-story building?
I don't believe in that particular segment of Dodge Road, which I would define from John James Audubon Parkway to Campbell, there is any other examples of four-story buildings.
You good?
But I do want to note, and I think this is the important point as well, the site expressly permits that actually express much taller buildings. And again, that zoning classification cannot really come as a surprise to anyone. It's been there for 5 decades plus.
Thank you. Michael?
No questions.
No questions. Barb? No questions. Carrie? Anybody from the public? If so, please line up. State your name and your address.
Down. Tammy Coythan, 441 Dodge Road. You have all my letters and all of my photos. I mean, I've got more, I've got them again. I would just like to, you know, a few things he said. Okay, so yes, it was a nursery. Before that, it was a landscaping company where who knows what was being used. But this project is just way too big for our little road. It takes us 10 minutes to get out of the driveway during peak time. The traffic backs up from Campbell all the way past my house. I'm right across from the apartments that we just had this meeting about a couple years ago. The fire company can't even get down the road half the time. It's, you know, that part's very scary. We did get them to reduce it from a 3-story to a 2-story across from my house, which, you know, I didn't have a problem with. I would say, you know, as far as landscaping, there is no berm. I have headlights in my driveway because people seem to come and go every 10 minutes, 24 hours a day out of there. So I don't see it going to be any different down there. I'm looking at a rusty pipe for the last 2 years sticking out of the ground across from my house. I feel like this is in line with the projects on Sweet Home. All of the big, you know, we are not Sweet Home Road. We cannot handle this. We're not a 4-lane road with with turning lanes. I just feel it's a very dangerous project for their drainage. They're saying there's not going to be an impact. Right now, we've had a lot of rain. Anybody driving down Dodge is seeing the lake in the piano store parking lot on a daily basis. The whole parking lot was flooded. They had trucks over there pumping it out the other day. It just, you know, that part just doesn't make any sense to me at all. Oh, shit, my notes are a mess, I'm sorry. I wish I could show you, the photos. I mean, you're saying, it's a residential. We have a sign, residential neighborhood. It's just too big of a project for our road. I just feel that even bringing it down from 5-story to 4-story, that just really doesn't help. No more than 3-story, it should
What are your
be.
photos?
I have a bunch of.
Sure. Hand them to me. $100 of photos, sir? So what are you telling me? You want $100 from me right now? All right, so I know there's a lot here. Is there anything in
actually, have a
particular?
copy of those?
You've got them numbered?
Yes.
Okay, is there anything in particular you want us to, we're happy to show it, if something you want us to show us?
Okay, so, well, number 1 shows you that it's a residential neighborhood. There's a big sign there that says this is a residential neighborhood, 1 through 4 are just showing how it's houses. So 1 through 4, if you could do those. That's the proposed site. It's still the proposed site, and it's not a huge lot. 200 feet, that's not even really that far. And then 5 through 10 shows the massive structures, which we're trying to avoid. You could just show a couple of those. That's, to me, isn't that 4-story, most of those? And there might be a 5-story in the background. That just doesn't belong on our little residential Gettsville Road. We're just not equipped to handle this.
Everyone understands, this is Sweet Home, by the way.
This is Sweet Home, but these are basically looking like the same height. Okay, skip that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. And then, if you could, the one that's got an X on it, you could go to that. Okay, so that shows this was while they were building the other apartments across from me, right there. That's the piano store adjacent to Arbordale's old Christmas building. They had a gas leak in there. See all those fire trucks? What are the chances everybody can even get down there in time for something if the road is completely blocked with traffic continuously? And I'd like to question when they said there was a traffic study done in July, because I don't recall driving over any of the things and counting the cars and all that. The only traffic study that we are all aware of was in the middle of COVID, when there was a driving ban. I mean, we couldn't even go anywhere, really. So to me, unless I've seen something on a traffic study since then, which we have not, and then photos 14 through 17 show you the flooding that we go through. And again, I wish I had taken a picture. I just didn't have time because I just found out about the meeting. This is our ditch in front of my house, filled to the top, after a rain. That's our backyards. There's my daughter and my husband canoeing in the backyard.
You don't have a fence around that pool,
The ducks like it, the geese like it, Yeah, that's looking out my back bedroom window, and then that's the ditch on the other side that, my husband continuously cleans them out, opens the pipes, blows the hoses through. So but that is a real, that's a real problem. And again, like I said, just this week, since the rain has been coming again, the parking lot at the piano store is completely flooded. They had people over there with trucks pumping it out. They actually had pumps set down in the parking lot pumping it out. So I just think that it's way too much. I've lived there since 1989, and, this is not what we signed up for. I understand expansion, but I just think this is too big of a project. I think it needs to be scaled down a little bit more than it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brenda Burrow, and I'm at 425 Dodge Road. I'm directly across, kind of at an angle from where the new property went in a couple of years ago. Tammy mentioned about the traffic study. I agree, having that redone, because when I think the one was done was in 2020 during COVID. We'd kind of like to maintain 2-story buildings, keep the look of our neighborhood, not have these big high-rise buildings there, and adding a lot more families to the area. It's just, we can't justify putting that many more cars on our street. We can't get out of our driveways now. It's very difficult. As far as the lighting, they said, that they put the special lighting in. That's not true. Those lights shine right in our bedroom windows every night. You know, it's definitely changed. You know, the lighting there it's not friendly. I know they put sidewalks.
Interrupt you for a minute. The lighting you're referring to is the existing lighting there now,
The
right?
existing lightings on the properties that they put in a couple of years ago, those two-story units that are across from us, it's the same, it's just an extension of that project is what it is. Sidewalks, they put sidewalks in. Sidewalks are awesome. They don't go anywhere. I mean, why put them in if they're not gonna go anywhere? Let's connect them at least from John James Audubon all the way up to Campbell so that people can walk down them. If you're gonna put that many more people in there, give them a sidewalk to walk on with that much more traffic in there. Traffic gets backed up down at Campbell and Dodge. Maybe restripe where the road is so that when people pull up on Dodge to turn on Campbell, the flow can keep going if we have a turn lane up there at that intersection up there. What are these four-story buildings gonna do for the value of our homes across the street? You know, it's definitely changed. If I was gonna sell my house and someone was gonna buy it, I would look over there. I wouldn't wanna buy something like that. You know, our house is currently suburban agricultural. You know, across the street, that's what all our houses are. You know, if they wanna, and I've told them before, you guys wanna buy all our properties and this is the kind of community the town of Amherst wants, then buy all of us out too. Put them all, put that whole neighborhood like that then. You know, buy us all out. You know, it's just not what we want. It's just too much, too many people moving in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Siobhan Brown, 415 Dodge. Just to comment on the traffic study. I own my own business, snow plowing, lawn care. It's very dangerous. I'm not sure where and when these traffic studies are being done. I think I remember reading they were 8 a.m. or after. They need to be done sooner. 7 a.m., the traffic is backed up, sometimes almost all the way to the Audubon, from Campbell down from Audubon. Nobody can get in and out of our driveways. When we plow, we service many residents on Dodge Road. We've been almost hit several times. People go around the double yellow line, they're not watching, they're not looking. The intersection at Campbell and Dodge needs a turning lane. There's just no way around it. It's so backed up. And I just want to also comment, this is the only section of Dodge that is having these 4-story big developments. The rest of Dodge is all residential. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Burrow from 425 Dodge Road. I heard Mr. Hopkins, who does a great job, by the way, say that this has been zoned this way for 50 years plus, that it has been able to be used. My concern is it may have been zoned that way for a building, several buildings. Was it zoned with the purpose of having that many apartments and that many people living there? We're saying there's going to be no traffic situation. I saw in those pictures that were presented by Tammy Coythen, there are no shoulders on that road. There is one lane each way. If you're introducing that many homes with that many cars, that is not going to pose any type of traffic conflict. I don't know where this study was done or when. I don't think it was done recently. This cannot handle that type of traffic on that road. There are times of the day it is virtually impossible to get in and out of your driveway, and to add that to it with, how many apartments are we talking about? How many tenants and cars? What are we talking?
Here, why don't you address it to us?
Okay,
and that will respond.
I don't know how many we're talking about. If there's 168, I heard, do they each get one car? Do they get 2 cars? That's a rather large number to put in that area that maybe it was zoned for agricultural or commercial, but I don't know if it was meant for that dense of an area. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Charles Hallam. I live at 451 Dodge Road. I've lived there all my life, 74 years. Before Arbordale, it was Lang's topsoil. My real concern is the safety of my community. That road has maybe about 8 inches and then a ditch. And a ditch might be, it's about 5 foot or better deep. If you go to the east side of Dodge, up past Campbell, they have 2.5 feet to 3 feet and a curb, and it goes all the way down Dodge Road. You go west of Audubon Parkway, it's the same thing. You have 2.5 to 3 feet. The people can move over when the fire trucks or ambulance all the time, because there's ambulance at that fire station all the time, and they're up and down the road. They're courtesy enough to not blast the siren in the evening. During the day, they're up and down the road all the time. You're adding all these. This is not a sweet home road. 2 stories is minimum, I believe. The other thing is, with all these retention ponds, that's a nice word for them, because I call them scum ponds. Because if you go to Audubon Parkway, the Audubon community, and you go behind it, it's green. It stinks. If you go to Casey and Young's Road, behind those beautiful homes, every one of those people put a fence behind their yard to keep their child from going in it, or their dog, or the smell and stuff like that. You kind of snickered at my neighbor, because I'm also in that backyard with that water. And they asked if there was a fence. Who's putting the fences around the retention ponds? Who's going to get sued when some child goes in one of these retention ponds? They're going all over Amherst. If our sewage isn't capable of taking all this stuff, what are we doing? We need to look at our sewage. I mean, tell me that you don't want it, when it overflows, that it's going to go into Ellicott Creek, or Tonawanda Creek, I'm sorry. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening. My name's Tom Schlau. I live at 493 Dodge Road, which is directly across from this project. I just want to go on record saying that I'm opposed of the project. I agree with everything everybody said here. I just think it's way too grand of a project where it's located. I don't think the road can handle it. It can't handle the traffic now. I've gotten in one accident already backing out of my driveway. This is not the place for this grand scale of these buildings. When I moved here 25 years ago, you had 330 acres across the street. That was always going to be developed, but it was nice to look there and say, look at it, it's all woods. Now you got the apartments they just put up that are part of this. You got the huge thing going on at the end of the 990, or where you get on the ramp. This whole area in the last 5 years is just unbelievable what's happening to the growth of it. I'm not for it. I just want to be on record saying that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doug Coythan, Dodge Road resident. All this building on both sides of the 990 is getting unbelievable. Building all these houses and apartments, then pretty soon people are moving in there, then they're going to realize, oh, this traffic noise is way too noisy for us. We're going to have to have sound barriers put in between the residential areas and the highway or throughway or 990, and it's just going to be a burden on. That's just going to be more taxpayer money that has to be spent all this on another project after all this is built. That's the only thing I have to add.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Seeing none, Mr. Hopkins.
I'll do my best to briefly respond to the comments that were received. Number one, in terms of what was envisioned 5 decades ago on this particular site, when the NCD zoning was put in place for that 1,200 acres associated with the UB North campus. There wasn't a specific plan, but if you look back at those planning documents, and I have, it is important to note that the build out of the NCD new community district has been far less than what was envisioned back then. If you look at planning documents from the town of Amherst back 50 years ago, it was envisioned the population might be upward of 250,000 by 2023. That's never going to occur, probably never was realistic, but it's important to note this area was designated for high-intensity development. In terms of fire access, it's important to note there's a fire station located directly at the corner of Campbell and Dodge Road. The buildings will be fully sprinkled, which I know is a question that Mr. Raphael would typically ask, and this project has been reviewed and approved by the town's Fire Chiefs Advisory Committee, so it does comply with emergency access standards in terms of fire trucks being able to get in and out of the site in the event of an emergency. In terms of lighting, I do want to note that one comment was made about some existing lighting situation at the project down the street. We'd be happy to follow up with that. If there's a light that's not facing the right direction or needs to be modified to prevent some spillover, certainly a reasonable request. So we would ask that we have the opportunity to follow up on that particular comment. But we have submitted a lighting plan that demonstrates no lighting spillover onto adjoining properties. In terms of drainage, and drainage is always a difficult topic. Do you want to go back to the plan? Because it's not easy to understand. Today, on this developed site, or partially developed site, there is no stormwater management system. So water goes where water goes. Under its developed condition, and Pat Sheedy prepared the plans, we are required to provide a stormwater management system. What we're showing is a dry pond on the northwest portion of the site that will retain water on a 100-year storm event and ensure that there's no additional increase during a rain event. We've demonstrated that. That's been reviewed and approved by the engineering department. It's also important to note that Amherst has been fairly proactive, and nowadays versus 10, 20, 30 years ago, all developers are required to sign what's known as a stormwater management agreement. It basically states that the developer is responsible to maintain the stormwater management system. It's recorded at the Erie County Clerk's office, and if they fail to do so, the town has the ability to exercise remedies, including actually rectifying the situation and assessing that onto the tax bill. The Green Organization does own numerous multifamily projects in Western New York. They have an excellent track record, so rest assured the stormwater management system will be properly maintained. In terms of traffic, I want to make sure it's clear. Certainly, I don't live in that neighborhood, and I can't say the project will not generate any traffic. The key inquiry is whether it will generate a significant amount of traffic. And by way of comparison, currently on Dodge Road, there's 6,700 vehicular trips per day. On Audubon Parkway, 7,806. And Campbell, 7,895. During the peak hours, and the peak hour here is 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., the project will generate 14 trips entering and 44 exiting. During the PM peak hour, it's 44 entering, of course, people coming home, and 26 exiting. That's not to say that doesn't change the situation a little bit. It's simply not significant. Again, that's not our opinion. It's the opinion of our traffic engineer, backed up by the review and approval of the Traffic Safety Board. I think those are the comments that have been asked. If there's anything else that I
Mr.
missed.
Hopkins, when was that traffic study done?
So that traffic study was based on counts taken in 2020, 2021, and 2020 and 2022, and was most recently updated by Passero Associates on July 27th of this year.
Okay. Thank you. Hearing nothing more, hearing's closed.
Thank you.
All right, next item, item number 7. This is a site plan review, a proposed Dana Heights Playground, Park Playground, property located at 79 Shetland Drive.
Good evening. My name, oh, sorry, I'll wait.
We'll let them walk out for a minute. Oh, wait, she wants to be on a noose.
I'm good.
I'm kidding.
I'm good.
Give it a second here. I didn't want to, so we can pay attention to your project.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Leanne Voigt. I'm a senior planner with Wendell Companies, here to present to you tonight on behalf of the town of Amherst, the Dana Heights Playground Project. The Dana Heights Playground is located on the south side of Shetland Drive, approximately 500 feet east of Fruitwood Terrace and Shetland Drive. It is in an existing neighborhood on the north side of Sheridan Drive, and it is currently zoned recreation conservation. The existing development is actually, it's only 0.64 acres of property, and as you can see, it's a neighborhood park with a small playground right in this area with some trees, and we're surrounded by single-family and multifamily residential here. Now, the proposed project is a new inclusive playground that would make it accessible for all, and it's an exclusive playground and play surface that the Recreation Department has been working with the renowned park design group Parkitects. And then Wendell was brought in to help them design the additional site work that was required. This site work, and I'll show you on a site plan, it also includes a walkway and also some landscaping improvements. So to get into some of the details of this project, this is Shetland Drive right here, and this is the proposed playground. The existing playground is approximately in this area. And with the size of this accessible playground, what the hope is to really provide a great amenity for the neighborhood and a new play space. There is actually a grade change of 4 to 5 feet from Shetland Drive to this location for the playground, which is very difficult to do, to navigate when you're in any wheelchair or any other assisted device. So the sidewalk had to be sloped and curved in order to get an appropriate grade for wheelchairs to be able to navigate this. That is also why this site, the playground site, is pushed a little bit further south than what the existing playground was. Or is currently. The dark green are new trees that are proposed, and the light green are existing trees that will remain. So we've had, this was submitted, all town departments have provided us with their comments, and we've responded to them. And we received variances 2 nights ago for the setback, for all of the reasons I really just explained, to give them an ADA accessible pathway. We also received variances for the required buffers that are set between structures and surrounding residential neighborhoods, and that is due to us keeping existing trees and adding some additional trees. Here is an image of what it will, a rendering of what it will look like, or what it should look like. Again, this was, this playground equipment was selected by the town's recreation department to really better serve the community. And this evening, we're here asking you for site plan approval. So.
Thank you. Brittany, any questions? No questions. Michael?
No questions.
Del?
No questions.
Harb?
No questions.
Carrie? Anybody in the audience wish to ask questions on this? Seeing none, hearing's closed. Next item, item number 8, please. All right, seek a review for a proposed preliminary plat, proposed 26-lot subdivision, Ashley Green, property located at 10060 Transit Road.
Good evening. My name is Ken Zouch. I'm with the engineering firm GPI here tonight on behalf of DJC Land, the project applicant. What we're requesting tonight is a review of the seeker for a 26-lot subdivision called Ashley Green. This is part of an overall property that the developer owns that extends out to Transit Road. The portion that we're looking at tonight is just going to be the western half on the 26 lots, as you can see right up against Smith Road there. Next slide. The existing development is immediately south of an existing residential development, also R3. So we're basically matching that in. We're extending Ruby Lane and connecting out to Smith Road. Very similar in nature to the surrounding development. Next. You can just skip over these next couple here. We'll just go to, yes. Okay. So just to start, this project did have to receive a rezoning. It received a rezoning back in 2021. This board had actually reviewed the rezoning, recommended approval of it. The town board also approved the rezoning to R3, and at that time also issued a seeker negative declaration. So this is something that's already been somewhat vetted as we come through here. I'll go through each of the environmental impacts, at least a broader category. The subdivision portion you can see on the west side, again, was part of a larger development. At the time that we came to this board, however, the project was even larger than what we have tonight. It included an additional parcel along Transit Road, 190 Transit Road. The developer could not obtain that property, so we're only moving forward with the property that's under his control. That's no longer part of this action. If you go to the next slide, you'll see this is a new revised concept. As I've stated, we've removed the property 190 from any consideration. That's not under our control, so we're only dealing with the property that is. We're keeping the same 26 lots for the R3 portion on the west side. We've taken some of the townhomes from 190, moved them down into our property, which used to be more of the smaller patio-style lots. So those will now be townhomes. In the frontage along Transit Road, CTR 2.5 still remains the same, although, of course, there are not as many mixed-use buildings at this time. The subdivision itself is 26 lots on about 13.8 acres. We include a Smith Road connection as well as a Ruby Lane connection. This Ruby Lane connection was at the recommendation of the planning department, fire safety, as well as traffic safety. We originally came in with a concept plan that did not include that connection. At the recommendation of the town, that was included. That will be a full vehicular connection, as well as a sidewalk connection as well, and we would be removing the temporary turnaround that's located at the end of that street. All of our lots meet and exceed the minimum R3 standards as proposed. Some of the environmental impacts that we look at, as part of the town requirement, they do require a 50-foot riparian buffer, and this applies to the water courses that run through the site along the town ditch, which is along the eastern portion of the subdivision, then south, and then actually flows north along Smith Road. So you can see that line highlighted in blue. That would essentially be a buffer where no disturbance would occur beyond that. As you can see, we've also taken a look. This project's largely going to be developed on an former agricultural field. We're not really disturbing much in the way of woodland areas, trees. You can see the red line's kind of the southern boundary that we have, and that's kind of where that buffer limits of disturbance are. So we're really mostly dealing with previously disturbed soils. I do want to note on the bottom side here, which is actually the north, there is a tree line that is between our development and the adjacent development. We've tried to take that into account. We have a 15-foot drainage easement, a rear yard drainage easement proposed along that property line. However, we've placed our proposed drainage line as close as we can to the lot, to the street side of that in our development, so that it's an attempt to try to preserve as many of those trees as possible to try to keep that natural buffer between our development and those existing residents to the north. Wetlands for this project have been reviewed. There are no New York State DEC jurisdictional wetlands on this property. There are U.S. ACE, Army Corps of Engineers, federally jurisdictional wetlands. They include the water courses on the property as well as 2 wetlands on site. We have minimal disturbance proposed for those. If you go to the next slide. We're looking at approximately 0.1 acres. Now, the Corps of Engineers may be offering new guidance in September, so we don't know for sure if these 2 wetlands will remain under their jurisdiction or they will be removed ultimately. Either way, we're not planning on changing the plan. If they do get removed, that'll still remain as essentially preservation area, and we are only looking again at very minimal impacts considering the size of the site being 14 acres. We've done as much avoidance as we can for this site. There's floodplain on the property associated with the town ditch. This is not floodway, so we are allowed to go in and fill portions of the floodplain. This will be done through the Lomer F process, where we essentially fill the lots before the homes are getting built, run it through the town, and then up to FEMA for their approval. As part of this study, during the rezoning, the town had asked us to take a look at the impacts of our 2 proposed crossings of the ditches there and see how they impact our property as well as beyond. We performed an extensive hydraulic analysis. The results of that indicated that only within the project vicinity, there would be an increase of about 1/4 of an inch to the floodplain level. So really minimal. It's really only in the area of our development. The town has asked that we extend that out a little bit further, so we are currently working with the engineering department and coordinating with them just in terms of the extent beyond our site as well as out towards Transit Road and further downstream to make sure that there are no further impacts or impediments that would cause an unnecessary rise in the floodplain elevation impacting those other lots. We don't believe there will be, given our current analysis and limits of only 1/4 of an inch. But nonetheless, we will continue to work with the engineering department on that to make sure that everyone in the town is satisfied before we go in for the preliminary plat approval. A traffic study was performed on this site, and that encompassed the entire development, again, not just a 26-lot subdivision. At the time the study was done, it also included 190 transit roads, so it was a larger development. Study was performed in January 2021, and there was an update this past June to remove the portions that were no longer going to be developing. We analyzed the intersections identified on here going all the way out to Millersport Highway and down Transit Road, as well as town had requested that we look at cut-through traffic with the installation of the connection to Ruby Lane, as well as just between Transit and Smith Road. So that was analyzed as well, reviewed and approved by the Traffic Safety Committee. Ultimately, there were no significant impacts to the project or to the surrounding roads from the project. And of course, with the pullback of our development footprint, we've reduced those impacts even further than what they originally were. We understand, of course, as this project moves forward, that we will, of course, beyond the subdivision, have to deal and work with the DOT. They've been provided a copy of the study as well, and we know we'll have to get a permit from them to connect to Transit Road when that time comes. Additionally, part of the traffic study did look at sight lines at the intersections. There are no issues with the proposed sight distances, sight stopping distances as you approach the intersection, so we know it would be a safe intersection located there. And with that, we're asking that the planning board issue a negative declaration, just like they had for the rezoning for this project, and we can answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Brittany, any questions? No. Michael? No questions. Dell?
No questions.
Barb? No questions. Anybody in the public, in the audience wish to get up and speak, please?
Hi, my name is Chris Bogdan. I'm representing Rain Smokes Community Corporation.
Could you repeat one more time? We didn't hear that.
Sorry. Chris Bogdan. I live on Glen Oak Drive. I'm also representing the board of directors for Rain Smokes Community Corporation. So I've been fielding a number of concerns from my residents on this development, and I'll go backwards in order of importance. The first is you're now going to have a development in a lot of people's backyards that was not previously there, that doesn't have to conform to our declarations, which I understand may not be a reason to stop the development. The second is floodplain concerns. Obviously, people know that our neighborhood has had extensive issues with flooding, and I don't believe that enough attention has been paid to that in the past, so everyone in the neighborhood is very elevated on their concerns of that situation. The south side of the neighborhood, or the south side of the neighborhood tends to flood quite frequently. There's been a number of improvements that have stopped that from happening, but even as early as 5-6 years ago, we were having floods crossing over the streets. The third and most frequent that I continue to hear, and although this particular section doesn't include the cut through to transit, is you are now taking a dead-end street and connecting it to Transit Road in an area where Transit Road has awful traffic to begin with. So you're going to promote people cutting through, going to the golf course, trying to get to 990, going through our neighborhood. The previous proposal had an emergency gate. That has been removed here. And I believe it's disingenuous from the developer because we had a handshake agreement with both Brian Culpa and the developer that we would not cut through Ruby Lane. I understand the fire inspector's hesitance to not have that cut through because right now there is only one entrance to the neighborhood for emergency access. But I do not believe that this development won't eventually move through to Transit Road. You can see on the maps there's roads heading that way that dead end. They're not doing that because they don't want to eventually cut through to Transit Road. This is going to Transit Road at some point. And I do not believe that that road should connect to Ruby without a barrier to free traffic. There's 5 newborn kids on that road and right next to it. So those are my concerns, and those are the concerns I've heard from the neighborhood. Last time this came up, we had to get lawyers involved. I don't want to do that again, so I'm hoping we can all come to some sort of agreement on where this is going. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fran Dallman, 418 Glen Oak, just down the street from Chris. When Mr. Culp was campaigning for office, he stood in our neighborhood and promised us that any development that went in there would not be connected to Ruby Lane. And we know when it will get connected to Ruby Lane, traffic will double or triple because we will be the quick access to Smith Road and the 990. He said maybe he'll put a safety gate down there. Well, guess what, guys? We've been on that north side of Smith Road for 35 years. I've been there since '85. It hasn't been an issue for access. So I think that's a bunch of baloney. As far as a traffic study, the original one I read said from 2020, and then apologized that they did their traffic study during the COVID year, knowing full well that the traffic during the COVID year was drastically different than it is today. And I would like anybody in this board to go sit in a corner of Smith Road from 7:30 to 9 every morning and 4 o'clock to 6:30 at night and tell me that there is no traffic issue. Smith and Transit's a nightmare. And that stretch from North French here is just crazy. Adding 2 more exits, especially onto Smith, is going to make our neighborhood a nightmare. That creek does flood. The town's done a lousy job of keeping it clean. It backs up constantly, and anybody who's ever played Glen Oak Golf Course knows that the overflow is insane. And if we're going to add 26 more homes in there, it's just going to make it a mess. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
James Sturman, Odessa Court. Without repeating everything the 2 previous speakers said, I would just sum it up by saying that
Can you give me your number on Odessa Court, please?
3-0.
Thank you.
Without repeating everything the 2 previous speakers said, I can just sum up my point with saying that I think I'm against the concept of connecting Ruby Lane to this new development. If it's necessary to have some type of road connection for some safety thing, I think that the road should be blocked off and only open for emergencies. But if it's not an emergency, just like the other speaker said, all you're doing is you're opening up the whole thing to traffic, and you're talking about a quiet residential neighborhood that I've been there over 30 years. People didn't move in there because of the potential of great traffic. They moved in there for the potential of quietness. And there's a safety issue involved when there's great traffic.
Thank you.
Sue Cobus, 1079 Smith Road. I saw that the mail center is located near Smith Road, so everyone in that development will have to go to and from that area. I was wondering if it can be moved to a more central location.
Can you speak into this, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I see that the mail center is located near Smith Road, so that directs traffic to that entrance. And I was wondering if the traffic study accounted for everyone, or the residents, exiting and entering that way every day. And traffic is bad. There's no sidewalks on Smith Road either, so more traffic congestion is not safe for pedestrians. I'm concerned about eliminating wetlands, but it doesn't seem to bother anyone, so we'll just let that go. But the drainage from the new development is going to increase the water that goes to the surrounding areas, and they're going to have to, in order to build up the homes so they're stable, they'll have to change the ecology of the soil, and that water will drain off to the surrounding areas. And there's already standing water probably all spring on one side of Smith Road, and when we have heavy rainfalls and flood warnings, the new bridge that they built over Glen Oak, over the culvert, they re-engineered it to handle more water. It still is very close to the bottom of that bridge. So more water going that way is going to be a bad thing. As far as the sanitary sewers, I see that Town of Amherst Water Pollution Control Facility Plant 16 is designed for 36 MGD for the year 2006, but I didn't see anything about the current capacity, and I was wondering how far the $29,000 financial contribution will go towards upgrading our overtaxed sanitary sewer system. The soil in this area has very poor drainage, and it's acknowledged in the report. I just don't think that's going to be good for our area. I wonder if the FEMA map will be revised after the development and how that'll affect the adjacent properties. Like, will we have to be purchasing flood insurance because we'll have more flooding waters?
Thank you.
That's my concern.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Keith Bailey, 34 Topaz Court. My property backs up to the new property lines there. In the plans that I've received, I know he mentioned that there is a drainage easement at the back of my property, which there currently is, but in the plans that I've received, it's not directly mentioned in there. It's just a slightly darker line than the other property lines. My yard is very wet for the bulk of the spring and the fall. I typically cannot mow my back or side yard until maybe end of June, early July as it is, and I have a hard time believing that excess water is going to go up through a line of properties, over a road, down into, a ditch on the other side or a drainage area. So I'm very concerned with that. I'd like to know if there's any sort of assurances that my house that was built in 1986 and has had no significant structural damage, if that changes and I suddenly start having foundation issues, what kind of assurances do I have that something will be done about that? Or, like someone mentioned, do I need to then get flood insurance? What kind of recommendations would be made? But yeah, the drainage, and he did mention the trees. I was worried about, that copse of trees, whether that would all be torn down. I'm glad to hear they're going to try to save as much of that as possible. Also, our neighborhood does not allow fencing. Didn't know if there's any chance that they will be, in this new neighborhood, perhaps putting up a tall privacy fence behind all of these properties. For those of us who live along this area, we get wildlife. We have a nice view off of the back decks that's obviously about to disappear. But at the very least, it would be nice to know that we're not going to be staring into somebody else's living room or dining room or whatnot. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Massaro, 1116 Smith Road. And once again, just to repeat what everybody else said, the traffic is terrible over there. The infrastructure in the north side of Amherst cannot handle all the development that you people want to put over there. And it's just going to get worse, and all your traffic studies that you come up with are all garbage. You don't live over there, you don't know what the traffic is over there. It's terrible. We still have the flooding issues. I've lived there since 2000. I've been through numerous floods, and it's to the point where it's like I'll say again, you're overdeveloping that end of Amherst, and you don't have the infrastructure to handle the traffic. That is the biggest problem, and the flooding. So those are the major issues, and you're going to hear it until this is resolved, that's the biggest problem. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Mary Bartlett, 520 Glen Oak. In order to understand this, you have to understand the nature of Ransom Oaks. We are a community that has 3 pools with kids. So our kids on our side of Ransom Oaks, we have to cross Smith Road in order to use any of the pools. If you are ever trying to cross Smith Road, you'll realize with Lou Gehrig, with the golf course, with people not paying attention to the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, and the curve that comes around, it's a blind curve. It is very dangerous. We have young kids, 8 years, 9 years old, who can go to the pool by themselves, but it's very difficult to cross the street. Now, there was a death of somebody who was trying to cross the street just recently, about 2 years ago. That situation has not changed. There was also an accident where a car landed on top of the guardrail that was on the bridge that crosses right in front of Glen Oak. These situations are occurring every day. We're already at risk for what we have, and I don't think having a cross-through or bringing it into our neighborhood without addressing any of these other issues it's going to put us in a dangerous situation. And with regard to the flooding, I live at 520 Glen Oak. Several years ago, we were canoeing down our street in order to get out. And they did replace the bridge, and it has helped somewhat, but it hasn't completely done this. So if you're going to build these houses up, water flows down. We're looking at our property values being reduced by this. So unless they address these issues, I think this has to be tabled for right now. It's too dangerous. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Have a not? Ken, please.
Sure. We'll start with the Ruby Lane connection. When we originally came in with the sketch plan as well as the rezoning, we did not show that connection. We ultimately did show it after some discussion with the town, but we wanted it gated, or we at least indicated a gate after further review by the town departments and safety. I was basically told we need to remove it in order to allow full access, so that's why that gate was removed. Just as a generality, though, I think for Ruby Lane, I think most of those residents, Ransom Oak residents, are going to be cutting through this development. I do not see a clear path from Transit Road through Smith Road through our proposed development that would ultimately head to the north. They're going to use a new proposed development road for cut-through traffic if they're going to do any of it. They're not going to make a right turn on Ruby, then another left turn to get back out. They're just going to go through our new street. So I don't think there's too much opportunity for cut-through traffic outside of their neighborhood to actually go into their neighborhood. I believe their neighborhood's largely going to be using this street for the cut-through traffic. There's a question on the mail center. So a few years back, the United States Post Office made a determination that you're no longer going to have individual mailboxes on homes, that you have a central mail center for them to drop off. The mail center that's proposed is strictly for this subdivision. It's only going to be 26 lots that will use this mail center. It's not going to be some type of regional mail center or anything like that. So it's only for the people that live in this area. We do have the mail center in the center of the site now. If you want to go to just any of the, right here. It's right towards the middle, just right on the pond is where it's proposed, right towards the center, not towards Smith Road. We've moved it away from Smith. Originally it was proposed there. We've now put it at the center of the site to hopefully encourage pedestrian traffic, being that you're in the middle of the development so that people are more likely to walk there as opposed to one end of it where maybe someone's too far away. So again, that shouldn't be a traffic driver. That's just for this neighborhood. In regards to traffic, our study Yes, was prepared in 2021. We did look at historical rates that are provided by GBNRTC as well as actual counts at that time. We inflated those counts because we understand it was during the pandemic. So we've inflated those counts. We believe it was a conservative inflation. Ultimately, this subdivision itself only contributes 28 trips per the PM peak hour. That's our maximum for the subdivision. Again, it was reviewed by the town, reviewed by the Traffic Safety Committee, and found to be complete and acceptable. In terms of drainage, so our development is required to control all of the drainage that runs off our site. We cannot discharge onto adjoining properties. This is why we have a stormwater pond. This is why we have rear yard drainage. Our drainage from the proposed homes and impervious areas are collected into a piped system, brought to our pond. That pond has a controlled outlet which restricts the flow and keeps the rate of runoff to basically the pre-development condition, if not better. So we're not going to be increasing the rate of runoff once this development occurs. So we are containing our drainage on site, discharging it to the ditch. In addition to that, the town required us that we go through that flood analysis, and they reviewed it, found it to be acceptable as well. In regards to FEMA, I do not anticipate that there would be any revision to the floodplain maps associated with this development. Usually when we have to update floodplain maps, it's in association with changes to the floodway. Floodways are more associated with larger creeks and streams in the area, not something this small. We understand that it may still rise a fair amount, but it doesn't reach the level of having a floodway in FEMA's eyes. So they're not going to be updating the maps. Ultimately, they may update the maps as we remove homes from that area, but that would be about it. It wouldn't extend out or change the perimeter of the flood maps. And they only do that typically. I mean, I know the last round got approved about 4 or 5 years ago, and that we had heard for about 15 years that they were going to update the maps. So these things do occur, but it's infrequent at best. I cannot comment on whether or not there would be fencing allowed in the development. And just in regards to the sanitary sewer, yes, the developer does have to pay a fee based on the flow coming from the development. It's a set fee to the town of Amherst. The town then determines how best to use that allocated fee for sanitary sewer projects. We are not involved in determining where they do it, but the intent of the fee is to basically offset our new flows to help improvements townwide or in troubled areas where they have backups, where they have flow issues or treatment plant issues. So that $20-some thousand will be basically allocated for sanitary sewer improvements in the town. If there's anything else, I can answer it. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, item number 9, request to amend the bicentennial comprehensive plan for 5.1 miscellaneous acres of land from single-family residential to commercial / mixed use. Property located at 1635, 1639, 1641 North Branch.
Excellent. Good evening, members of the planning board. Ari Goldberg from the law firm of Barclay Damon for the petitioners, Tori and TJ Hirsch. They're both with me tonight as well. This is seeking your recommendation to amend the bicentennial comprehensive plan. So petitioners own 2 properties off North French Road, 1635 North French, that's the smaller one carved out here, and 1639, 1641 North French. 1635 is zoned R3, and then 1641 is zoned CF, community facilities. Common ownership, common borders, but disparate zoning and disparate uses on the properties. So currently at 1641 North French is the Greater Buffalo Gymnastics Center, a daycare center, and a dance studio, all children and neighborhood focused commercial destinations. And this blends well with the residential neighborhood to the north there, other residential neighborhoods to the west along Campbell, and the soccer complex to the east. There is no neighborhood shop, neighborhood eatery, or other destination like that where you could go after a soccer game, after dance, or grab a bite to eat without getting in your car. So at 1635 North French, petitioners are proposing a 2-story mixed-use facility. 6,400 square foot of retail on the first floor, 3,000 square foot of retail on the second floor, along with a residential suite on that same floor. And they're looking to target an upscale bakery or cafe type eatery and more family friendly or health oriented uses to complement exactly what's going on at 1641 North French. To further tie the properties together, they're also looking to interconnect them via a roadway. And the proposal for 1635 constitutes a mixed-use development. That's not currently permitted at 1635 North French. So we have to rezone the property to neighborhood business. Before we can even do that, we have to address the comprehensive plan. So comprehensive plan figure 6, thanks. Comprehensive plan figure 6 labels both of these properties as single-family residential. That classification certainly isn't true for 1641, which already has commercial development on it. And to bring the redevelopment of 1635 closer to reality, we need to also reclassify it on the map and therefore amend the comprehensive plan. So that's what the request is before you. It's to amend figure 6 to redesignate both of these properties as commercial / mixed use. One, because 1641 already is that, and to help bring 1635 closer to reality. One thing to make clear, I saw this in the notice, and there was a Buffalo News article about this project earlier. Figure 6 is the town's conceptual land use plan. I think the board knows this, but it's more for the record. Figure 6 is not the zoning map. We're not seeking a rezoning by any means. In requesting this amendment, we just need the map to match what's already there and match what the 1635 could be used for, which is our proposal, a commercial and mixed use development. So we submitted the application for this request for relief June 20th of this year, and since that time, many of the town departments have already reviewed and commented positively on this proposal. Most specifically, the Long Range Planning Committee and the Planning Department both agreed with the analysis that was submitted in support of the amendment request. Generally, what that analysis does is speaks to how this neighborhood-focused development complements adjacent uses, enhances neighborhood connectivity and community life, and that fits well within the existing scale of this commercial corridor. I think what Tori and TJ have done is they found a sweet spot between expanding commercial centers, expanding suburban corridors, which are goals of the comprehensive plan, but doing so in a way that still fits within the neighborhood. So with that, we're looking for your recommendation of approval. We're here to answer any questions of the board and the public, and thank you for your time.
Yes, I do have a question. Regarding zoning, do you plan to be coming back we need a zoning change?
We would need that, yes. For 1635, if this board sees it to recommend to the town board to adopt the comprehensive plan amendment, and the town board then adopts that amendment, that would open the door for us to come back for a rezoning.
Okay, realizing this is a concept plan at this time, do you have an idea of how many residential units you're thinking of on the second floor?
One.
Okay, thank you.
Carrie, anything? Anybody out there want to speak on this? Seeing none? Hearing's closed.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that was the last hearing. We'll take 5, and then we'll revisit.
Traffic safety review.
I know, yeah.
All right. You all set? Let's go to item number 1. This is site plan review, proposed Tier 3 solar energy system property located 850 New Road. First thing we're looking for is seeker determination. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion? Move to approve. That was by Mike. Second by Carrie. Roll call, please.
Shamil?
Yes.
Gill?
Discussion before that passes?
Okay, I guess if we need one, go ahead.
Yeah, concern is about the metals. My concern is about certain solar panels have metals and other toxic materials which can escape in accidental events. Now, many panels do not have those. Some have a special container to contain them during a fire. So my question was that maybe we should have a condition that that issue be addressed.
Well, okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Now we have an added condition. Are we
So-
okay with that condition?
So, Mr. Chairman, that would be a condition of the site plan. You can't condition a neg deck on
Under
that.
secret, right. Okay, so, yeah, he's right. So that goes under site plan, not under secret. Okay, so we'll pull it from there. All right, so roll call, please.
Gill?
Yes.
Gilmore?
Yes.
Giuliani?
Yes.
Khan? Penberthy? Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. All right, now, site plan review. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion? Seriously, folks?
I'll move to approve.
All right. All right, we have a motion by Mike, second by Carrie. All right, now, you want to once again reiterate, because now's the place to do that.
The condition to have a containment for any toxic materials that may be released during an accidental event.
So we have a motion and a second, now we've got a condition on that. Are we okay with the condition? Yes. All right, so roll call, please.
Mr. Chairman,
Gill?
we do have other conditions on the site plan if you'd like me to read them.
All right.
That signs be excluded from this site plan approval, that any mechanical equipment be appropriately screened, that as-built record drawings be provided to the engineering department. At the time of inspection for their certificate of compliance, the town may require supplemental plantings in accordance with town code to further buffer any of the current screening. That the parcels at 800 and 850 New Road be merged prior to the issuance of a final approved site plan drawing. That the petitioner be required to mitigate any glare produced by the array along Hopkins, Smith, New, and Millersport by supplementing existing vegetation and additional line of sight plantings on site if complaints are received, glare complaints are received by the building department. That the petitioner provide a copy of any and all U.S. Army Corps, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, or New York State DEC permit applications to the planning department when they're filed. That tree removals outside of the fence compound that not be authorized without evidence of such removals are absolutely necessary for the operation of the arrays. That the petitioner or the petitioner's contractor obtain any and all permits from Erie County Department of Public Works Highways for their work within the New Road right-of-way. That the petitioner satisfy the requirements of the Stormwater Management Officer in their review letter to the satisfactory of that officer, and that the petitioner provide documentation of the co-location of agricultural uses as is required by town code, and that the petitioner obtain a special use permit from the town board pursuant to town code.
Thank you. So we've heard the conditions. Is everyone okay with those conditions? Yes. All right, we have a second. Roll call, please.
Yes. Gill?
Yes.
Gilmore?
Yes.
Giuliani?
Yes.
Khan? Penberthy? Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. All right, the next item is item number 2, and we're going to do each of these individually. Now, Michael, you're going to recuse
Just to remind the board, before we actually get to voting on
No, excuse me, before you go there, you have to recuse yourself now, right?
Yeah, I'm
All
gonna,
right. So, and what we saw before is when Michael walked out because he does business with this particular firm. So now, you're going to walk out there again, right?
yeah, yes.
Please do that. All right, this way, because he has business. He steps off, now we'll talk about it. All right,
Just getting back to your first vote is the seeker. It's actually on all 4 projects the seeker has been done for. Parcels 1 through 4, which is the Dick's Costco site, which are 2 separate ones, the Key Bank site and the Delta Sonic site. Then you have 4 other votes on things that you can actually do to alter the site plan pursuant to the town code, which is, in this case, landscape islands. Then we'll go into the specific site plans and the related conditions, if you're comfortable
Okay.
with that.
we are. Thank you, and I appreciate you explaining that. Thank you. Does everyone understand that? So we're going to go through each of these individually. All right. The first vote, of course, tonight is for seeker determination. Move to approve. Do we have a second? Dell and Carrie. Are you going to do something? No. Okay. All right, just want to make sure. All right. And with this particular one, all right. So we have a motion, we have a second. Roll call, please.
Gill,
Yes.
Gilmore,
Yes.
Giuliani.
Yes.
Khan. Hedberg. Yes.
All right, so we have 1 abstention, 5 yeses. Motion passes. All right, vote number 2. This is the modification for,
This
okay,
is to allow the consolidation of internal landscape islands to the end of rows of the parking stalls.
we all good with that? All right, do we have a motion? Move to approve. Do we have a second? Dell and Carrie. Roll call, please.
Gill,
Yes.
Gilmore.
Yes.
Giuliani.
Yes.
Khan. Yes. Hedberg. Yes.
Motion passes, 5 yes, 1 abstention. The next, vote number 3, modification 2. This is the other town code.
This is to
Again,
eliminate,
do you, please?
this is to eliminate terminal islands when they provided for snow plowing purpose, when they provided a complete green median between this and the drive aisle.
Okay, we're good with that? Do we have a motion? Move to approve. Do we have a second? Dell and Carrie, roll call, please.
Gill,
Yes.
Gilmore.
Yes.
Giuliani.
Yes.
Khan. Hedberg. Yes.
Motion passes, 5 yes, 1 abstention. Modification number 4, the vote.
This is to allow them to substitute the required large deciduous shade trees in landscape islands with small ornamental trees in lieu of those trees. You can authorize that.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Move to approve. Dell, do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion to approve, and we have a motion to deny. Well, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second on his motion?
If I may, just for discussion very briefly.
Please.
I think this is the one where the concern was that there should be like shade trees instead of any shrubs.
Okay.
And considering the expansive parking lots,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
considering obviously the large development, we should deny the request. And I think obviously the applicant should work with the town architect in finding substitute landscape to satisfy the concerns that the town may have.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve and a motion to deny. So where are you with your motion?
I wanted my motion to stand. She doesn't have a second for her motion.
I understand it, nor do you at the moment. Okay, so I just want to see where we are. Okay, so only because he came first, I will ask. Do we have a motion for Dell's motion? A second. Do we have a second for Dell's motion to move as it's noted here? I'll ask one more time. Is there a motion for this? Hearing none, your motion fails. Now,
I would move to deny this request for modification.
I'll second that.
I think the applicant should work with the town, finding suitable landscaping, considering the expansive parking lots that are proposed for this project.
Okay, so
I'll
we
second.
do have a motion and we do have a second. All right, everyone understands. Roll call, please.
Gill,
Yes.
Gilmore,
Yes.
Giuliani,
No.
Khan. Yes. Hedberg. Yes.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 no, 1 abstention. Okay, next one. This is the North Bailey Avenue sidewalk waiver. I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn on this for the moment because I believe we need some additional definition with regards to some things that we just don't know. So we can come back and visit this at another point.
Yes, we would like to get further input from the NFTA and the bus routing, location of bus stops that are going to be associated with this project before we determine where or where not to provide sidewalks in the public realm.
Okay. So, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Can I have a second? Okay, I'm not sure who was faster with this. Brittany? So, yes by Dell, second by Brittany. Roll call, please.
Gill,
Yes.
Gilmore.
Yes.
Giuliani,
Yes.
Khan. Yes. Hedberg. Yes.
All right, motion passes 5 yes, 1 abstention. Next item, item number 6, site plan review.
I would move to close the hearing and adjourn decision on this, again, pending some more determinations.
We're going to close the hearing.
Well, I guess we were discussing the sidewalk issue still to be discussed.
Oh, the sidewalk was adjourned.
So go with site plan.
Now we're into the yes, we'll bring the sidewalk waiver request back to
That
this
was
board.
addressed up here.
Okay, then I'll withdraw that.
You're withdrawing your, all right. All right, so this is for site plan review. And by the way, just so everyone knows, all right, we have a list, okay, here of conditions. This is not the first time for certainly everybody up here. We've had plenty of time to review these and understand these. But for the purpose of everyone here, we just want to let you know, these are what we're talking about, all right? So they're on record. This is it from that standpoint. All right, so now, we're going to go back. This is vote number 6, site plan review. This is for Dick's. And I'll go back again. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
By Dell. Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Second with conditions.
Okay, second with conditions.
Those conditions.
Yes, right. Okay. And we have a motion, we have a second with the conditions. Everyone understands the conditions? Okay, roll call, please.
Gill,
Yes.
Gilmore.
Yes.
Giuliani.
Yes.
Khan. Hedberg. Yes.
Motion passes 5 yes, 1 abstention. Next item, vote number 7. This is site plan review again. We have conditions there. All right, do I have a motion?
Move to approve with conditions.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So we have Dell and we have Harb. All right, roll call, please.
With conditions.
Yeah, as we said, with conditions, yeah, as noted here. Roll call, please.
Gill,
Yes.
Gilmore.
Yes.
Giuliani.
Yes.
Khan. Hedberg. Yes.
Motion passes 5 yes, 1 abstention with conditions. Item number 8, site plan key bank, also with conditions. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve with conditions.
We have a motion, do we have a second? Do we have a second?
Second.
From Brittany, thank you. Roll call, please.
Gill,
Yes.
Gilmore.
Yes.
Giuliani.
Yes.
Khan. Hedberg. Yes.
Motion passes 5 yes, 1 abstention with conditions. All right.
Number 9.
Next item, item number 6. I'm going to ask for a
No,
motion to adjourn.
Bob?
What?
We've skipped a vote for the Delta Sonic.
Oh.
Vote 9.
Let's see, where did I thought I got key. Oh, yes, I did. No, I didn't. Where the hell is it? Let's see. I don't have it.
Another page. Yeah, after that. There you go.
Oh, it snuck in there. All right, that's why I didn't see it. My apologies. Item number 9, site plan review. This is also with conditions. Do we have a motion? This is for Delta Sonic.
Move to approve with conditions.
Thank you. And, okay, Dell, and with Brittany. Roll call, please.
Gill,
Yes.
Gilmore,
Yes.
Giuliani,
Yes.
Khan, Hedberg. Yes.
Motion passes, 5 yes, 1 abstention. Okay, Michael, do you want to come back up?
Yeah. I gotta get my.
Thank you. All right, the next item, item number 6, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn, and let me explain why. Because we've got some things that have surfaced with regards to the Erie County Department of Public Works. Actually, one of the things they're talking about is a mid-block rectangular rapid flash and beacon system with crosswalk to be constructed by the petitioner if approved, once constructed, et cetera, et cetera. We've not had time to look at any of this stuff. We don't know anything about it. There is also some other issues out there that I know that the planning department has talked about with regards to some construction and other things. So there are still some things yet to be resolved with regards to making the final decision on this project. Therefore, I am asking for a motion to adjourn until those things are resolved.
Move to adjourn to a further date.
So you're making the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Roll call, please.
Schmiel,
Yes.
Gill,
Yes.
Gilmore.
Yes.
Giuliani.
Yes.
Khan. Hedberg. Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes 6-0. Item number 7. 2 items here, seeker determination first. This is for site plan review, proposed Dana Heights Park Playground, property located at 79 Shetland. First off is for seeker. Do we have a motion? Okay, Brittany and Michael. Roll call, please.
Schmiel,
Yes.
Gill,
Yes.
Gilmore.
Yes.
Giuliani.
Yes.
Khan. Hedberg. Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Site plan review, and I believe we have some conditions on this. Would you be so kind as to repeat those, please?
Sure, that signs be excluded from this site plan approval, that any accessory structures be appropriately screened, and that record as-built drawings be provided to the engineering department.
Okay. Everyone understand the conditions? Good. You're going to move to, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, same way. Brittany, Michael. Roll call, please.
Schmiel,
Yes.
Gill,
Yes.
Gilmore.
Yes.
Giuliani.
Yes.
Khan. Hedberg. Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0. Next item is item 8-1. I'm also going to ask for an adjournment on this because there are so many issues out there yet, especially regards to water, especially regards to wetland. We've got some DEC stuff that we are not clear on yet with that. So just, there's no way that we can make any kind of action on this, in my opinion, tonight. So I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn to a later date.
Do I have a second? Michael. Okay. Motion by Dell, second by Michael. Roll call, please.
Schmiel,
Yes.
Gill,
Yes.
Gilmore.
Yes.
Giuliani.
Yes.
Khan. Hedberg. Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0. Item number 9. Okay, this is the request to amend the bicentennial comprehensive plan for land, single-family use, residential, and commercial mixed use, property located 1635 and 1639, 1641 North French Road. There are no conditions on this, as we've discussed in the past, unless anything has changed. That being said, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Michael. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dell. Roll call, please.
Schmiel,
Yes.
Suspense.
Gill,
Yes.
Gilmore.
Yes.
Giuliani.
Yes.
Khan. Hedberg. Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Next item, item number 10. Okay, what we are looking for here, there's actually 2 requests to extend this site plan for a period of time. So in essence, we're voting for the extension twice. So on the first vote, do I have a motion to extend?
Move to extend.
By Dell, do I have a second? Second. Second by Brittany. Roll call,
Mr.
please.
Chair,
Yes.
There are the same conditions as the original approval.
Thank you. All right.
Go through
We're
those?
okay with that? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Camille?
Yes.
Gill?
Yes.
Gilmore?
Yes.
Giuliani?
Yes.
Khan? And Murphy? Yes.
All right. One more time. Do I have this is also for the following year to extend. Do I have a motion? With conditions again, by the way.
Move to approve of those conditions.
Thank you, Michael. Do I have a second? By Brittany. Roll call, please.
Camille?
Yes.
Gill?
Yes.
Gilmore?
Yes.
Giuliani?
Yes.
Khan? And Murphy? Yes.
Thank you. Next item, item number 11. This is the extension of the preliminary plat approval for the proposed 19-lot subdivision, Regency Commons, property located at 166 Klein Road. This is for an extension. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Okay, Michael, Brittany, roll call, please.
Mr. Yes, thank
Yes,
you.
with the conditions, thank you.
The same as that your previous approval of preliminary plat. Preliminary plat.
Right, please. Roll call.
Camille?
Yes.
Gill?
Yes.
Gilmore?
Yes.
Giuliani?
Yes.
Khan? And Murphy? Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. All right. Has anybody had a chance to, I hope, read the minutes? Move to approve the minutes. We have a motion, and I guess Brittany made this. Carrie seconded it. Roll call, please.
Camille?
Yes.
Gill? Yes. Gilmore?
Yes.
Giuliani?
Yes.
Khan? And Murphy? Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. There is no director's report this evening. Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about? Next meeting date. Where do you want to go? I can. You sure? I don't know. Maybe I don't want to do it. Okay. I can do, whatever. There you go. All right. When is the next meeting date? September 21st. Thank you. All right, so we have another meeting date on September 21st. I hope everyone plans to attend that evening. This has been wonderful as always. Thank you for attending this evening. Do we have a motion to adjourn? There you go. And I guess we should probably, to be consistent, we'll do a roll call. Just do Seth. How's that?
Camille?
Yes.
Gill?
Yes.
Gilmore?
No. Yes, yes. Yes.
Giuliani?
Yes.
Khan? Yes. And Murphy?
Thank you. Motion 6-0.
Everybody stays up, let's see that motion.
There you go.
Just to see if we have to stay.
Folks, thanks for showing up tonight. If you got some questions, ask somebody else. What's that?